Hey, I'm Jason,
And I'm Kirk.
and we're here with Pastor Josue Urratia and of Future Church. Man, I love your name. I've loved your name ever since we started working on the branding, ever since we had a conversation and started talking about the possibility of partnering with what you were planning and dreaming for. And often our brand team puts together several options. And there was one option that we were like, if they pick this one, they really are Future Church. And you nailed it, man. You picked the branding team's favorite and just did. You're kind of pushing the envelope with your name and who you are. But man, just good to have you on the call, Josue.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be with you guys. And funny that you mentioned the name and the logo because of how it all came about. Reality is when we were getting ready to talk about planting a church, for lack of name, we were calling it Future Church, our future church. And so one of those days, one of the team members says, "Hey, Pastor, there's kind of a ring to that. You should really consider that." So I said, let me pray on it. Let me see if there's anything. I like to connect everything biblically as well. And I said, let me see if there's anything there. And I started praying on it, started reading the Bible. And there's a few verses that we use to connect it. But the main one that clicked it for us was Psalm 102:18 that says, "Let these things be written so that the future generations that have not yet been created would praise the Lord." And I said, all right, that's it. This is to connect this generation to the next generation so that we can pass something on as a legacy to them. And from then, when we started the branding process, I'll be very honest, I'm very young in age, but I think internally I'm an old guy in my soul. And so my first instinct was not the one that you just mentioned. So what ended up happening is, we shared it with the team and we said, hey, we have these concepts. We would like to get your ideas and thoughts. And that particular gathering that we had, somebody had brought a friend that was a guest and it was first time with us. And at the end of it all, he was very quiet. I said, you know what? I would love to hear your perspective because you have no kind of previous notion of who we are and what we're about. And he ends up saying this. He says, that logo reminds me of the past of church where I grew up, but also in this new futuristic kind of way. I said, that's exactly it right there. We're trying to bring the essence of, the gospel, but branded in a new way that people would be able to connect with. So that's actually the story behind the name and
so good.
The logo.
Oh, that's so good. I tell you though, when you lean in, no matter what your age, if you're going to have the moxie to name yourself Future Church, then you've got to be open to hear from others and learn from others, both now. It sounds like you're already setting that, but you also have to be willing to adapt to whatever the future provides opportunities. And right now, man, when we first started talking about this, I had never heard the terms COVID-19. I never even heard that. But now in this environment, you're already thriving is what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing. And I'm like, you know what makes sense? A church called Future Church, just like leaning into this season where all of us in the whole culture have been thrust into. But so tell me real quick and tell everybody watching, what was the original plan? Did you have like a launch day in mind?
Right. We actually had a potential launch date. And one of the things is that I am kind of maybe don't want to get too ahead of myself, but this is the second church that I plant. I look young, but I mean, I planted a church at 19 years old.
Okay.
Wow.
So this is, and I led that church for 10 years of my life. And so there's a few things that you learn along the road. And one of those is, I was used to maybe many times jumping the gun by saying, I want to do this by this date. and then find that I didn't have enough resources, didn't have enough manpower, didn't have enough to do what I wanted to do. And one of the things that I really felt led in my heart to do was just say, okay, God, you're going to determine the times and seasons by the amount of resources, people, and things that you bring around to support the vision that you have given me. So we had a potential launch date. We were shooting for September. But in the midst of all of this current situation, we started praying and we started saying, Lord, is this maybe a season in which you could possibly grow your church that hasn't even yet been planted officially? Could you possibly do something with it? And so we started exploring those thoughts and started experimenting with it. And I remember that the first week that we did it, it was literally just to kind of send something out for our launch team. And so we sent out a private link on YouTube to everyone. And some of them said, Pastor, like, we're putting so much production work into this that really this is something we should share. So the second week I said, hey, just share it maybe with some close friends that you've been talking about this church with. And that's really kind of how it naturally and organically all then became a online stream, where the past 3 weeks are the first weeks that we've actually shared it openly. And usually we've been getting about 1,300 is right now kind of what we're getting as far as so yeah, that's kind of how it all
Come on,
came.
man. Come on, dude. That's awesome. Like, I'm thinking about September. I don't want to get ahead of myself. And God's like, okay, I love your patience now. You get it. How about April? Wow, man. Wow.
Well, what's amazing there, I mean, here's you're a church who's not launched, but then you find yourself in this situation, and really you find yourself on equal footing with a lot of other churches out there that are suddenly like, oh, we're used to meeting. Maybe we had 1,000 people gathering, but now we've got to figure out how to do church online. And they're at the same starting line as you were. And so why not start now? And boom, already you've got, would you say 1,300 people tuning in?
Yes. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Phenomenal. Man, I love it. So tell me, what is the current rhythm in this season of ministry? What does ministry look like? It's been ready, set, go. Here's the future for everybody. It really has. That's, I love your mission. I love the name and the mission and vision that you have to like help the church, be the future church. Now we're all thrust in. We're all welcome to the future church. What does ministry look like today and this week?
So here's one of the things that I think God's placing in my heart to share in this moment, because I talked about views for a moment, and that can be very misleading in this time. And the reason is because we will compare, and the reality is many pastors have a wider reach on their social media than maybe they do on a given Sunday. Mm-hmm. So what happens is we can be sometimes, and every metric is important, but one of the things that I believe, and you guys know this maybe a little bit knowing about our branding, I'm all about the commission. Jesus told his disciples, go preach, make disciples. And one of the things that has always made me challenge myself is how effective am I being at those two things that Jesus asked from me? So we get the first and we say we're preaching and we're reaching 1,300 people, right? And we check mark that one. But the next question that I think will challenge us as pastors in the season is, how do we do the other part, which is how do we disciple people? Because it's not the same just preaching to them than discipling them. And so we've had a very interesting dynamic that has happened in the past few weeks. And it's that people have begin to write to us and say, oh, I'm in Boston. How can I join the church? I'm in literally some people in Latin America. We were doing English only. We decided to do a Spanish stream as well. And now we have people in Latin America saying, hey, we love this. How can we be a part of this?
Wow. Uh-huh.
So with that, it's challenged me this week to begin praying and saying, okay, God, Before, my metrics would have been how many views are we having. Now my metrics are how many people are we processing to become disciples of Jesus Christ, committed disciples. So right now what I'm beginning to pray on is, how can I replicate any process that I would have internally within a church? How can I replicate to online? Because it's not enough of just having a service. Reality is, and I keep telling this to pastors that I'm talking with, you're in this moment competing against the fact, whether you want to view it that way or not, the fact that they can go watch Stephen Furtick, they can go watch TD Jakes, they can go watch anybody else. So what is it that you have to offer that will make it different for them? And with that, we have to think more than just a stream. If they want just a stream, they can go absolutely anywhere. But if your church can process and disciple them, that will change the game. And so for us, it's how do we record on video? We're working on recording on video, everything from what many people know as either Grow Track or connection classes or whatever the case may be. How do we get that on video as soon as possible? In our case, I've developed a School of Leadership, an 8-month program that develops leaders. So it's how do we get that on video as soon as possible so that we can begin forming leaders online. And then as well, the same that in a church, we would guide people through the process of, you accepted Christ, but now we want you to serve, or we want you to, join a small group. How can we replicate that online? And so I'm starting to have conversations on how do we, for the time being, take our volunteers and turn them into virtual volunteers. The same we would put them in the lobby, the same we would put them, to serve in different areas. How can we make sure that we mobilize people to replicate what we would do in person? Many times we go online as a church, and a lot of what we do, we miss it online. We don't take it and translate it online. And right now in the season, I think it's a time where the boundaries of churches are realizing that online was a big tool, was a big resource. I think the next step is, how do we take discipleship and translate to what's going on now online? And so that's one of the big things for me.
That's so good. What does the next steps look like for you as you think about, as you mentioned, where you're at, the governor's saying, hey, June will be the earliest, and then that'll probably be a gradual release. I don't know how they'll roll it out. But and others watching are in various degrees of that kind of ministry in the pre-COVID-19 vaccine era. Once that happens, then maybe people feel more. What's the next step? Are you planning a gathering type ministry? Or are you just kind of, let's just keep leaning into this season? Or are you still thinking if the door opens up in September and you can lease a facility, you would launch large? What do you think?
So for the time being, and one of the things I've been praying through is making sure that we're kind of in the right timing, in the right season. So for the time being, as you mentioned, for us, it looks like June 10th is the date. But beyond that, I don't think, I think that the wise thing would be to slowly begin to allow gatherings. I've heard some states where, and in counties where maybe they're beginning to experiment with allowing churches to gather at 25% capacity. But, some churches are already doing multiple services. How do we manage that, And so for me, one of the things that I'm saying is, Lord, you're using this. Why not continue to do this as much as I can?
Yeah.
Beyond that, when the necessity arises to meet in person once again, we can't neglect what we already started online. And that's what I think many churches, once we've been on this road, the biggest thing that we need to keep is consistency. The people that may be connected and were at a distance, they're expecting content now. How can we ensure that we cater to both without neglecting one or the other? I think that for me is what I'm praying through right now. And I'm just going to keep doing online right now as much as I can. And then we had a auditorium already, kind of conversations that we had work through. And, we got to wait and see what public schools are, because it's so many pieces working together that I think right now it's, Lord, let's run with what you've placed in front of us. And I feel like if God needs to change that, he's going to change that, and he'll make that very clear. But for the time being, we're running with it. We're going to make the best out of it.
Man, awesome.
Has this changed the contours of your vision for the church down the road at this point?
Definitely. I think it hasn't changed it, rather enhanced it.
Okay.
And I think that I've always seen our ministry as something that God has placed in the DC metro area, but that God had called to project beyond that, beyond the DC area. And I think that now it's where I'm really beginning to pray and say, Lord, okay, I see something moving here. So I need to be open to projecting myself beyond just what is the physical location. And right, this is what happens to the church. We see it in the Bible. There was persecution, and what happens? The church has no boundaries. Where somebody went, the church went. And miracles began to happen. And that's kind of the concept that I'm having for church now, where we're telling people, hey, you're in Boston. Sure, you want to go through our school of leadership. You want to open a small group, see what that grows into. If that grows into and God blesses it into a campus, why not? It's how do we allow that flexibility where the church has no boundaries, and where it goes, as so much as God blesses it, it can have an ability to multiply itself, grow, and grow through the challenges and have no boundaries.
Love it, man. I love it. And I think you signed up for this, whether you knew it or not, when you decided that, yes, we'll call this Future Church.
Yeah.
But dude, but you're leaning into it. I love you. I love it, man. I love you. I love what you're about. I love, and I like you. I love what this whole conversation is, because I think it is a part of the Future Church. And I mean, I've been saying this a lot lately, the churches that aren't thinking like what you're talking about, man, I just don't know if they're thriving 10 years from now, no matter how big they are today. If they're thinking we're just going to go back to 2015 and have our gatherings like they were, then, and maybe they can achieve that. I just don't think it has the same trajectory as what you're talking about. And so keep doing it, man. You're an innovator. You're a creator, you're a habitual church planter. And so I love you for that. My heart goes out to you. I feel that kindredness. How can we connect, man? How can those that are watching follow along or connect best with what you're doing?
Sure. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, both as Josue Urrutia DC. And I know that is a hard last name to pronounce, but Josue Urrutia DC on social media, on Facebook. Would love to connect, and on YouTube. I'll tell you this, honestly, we're just experimenting with this, so I'll tell you that on YouTube we don't even have a URL yet. We have 30 subscribers. We need 100 before we can actually get a URL. So, but if you search up Future Church, you'll find the videos that'll come up on the search. And so, yeah, any one of those ways would be fine.
I just subscribed to you. There's one more for you. And
there we go. There's a call to action. Let's get Future
100.
Church, its URL. That'll be our call to action. If you're watching this, let's get them their URL. Let's get them to 100 subscribers, because I think that's just the beginning for you, man. Not just
Absolutely.
Whether it's on one platform or another, just your heart for the kingdom, your heart for the Great Commission, and your heart to use the technologies of today and the emerging ones into the future to fulfill those callings. Do it, man. Keep going. We're so glad and honored to be a part of your team in that and getting that branding set up. But dude, just keep going, man. Keep going.
Absolutely. And we're so excited to work with you. We love the work, and we're we're on the last stretch. We jumped the gun and even went off before we even got a final brand guide.
I
We're just
love
so
it.
excited with what you guys are doing as well and helping us be able to take our brand and really communicate it in a way that we just haven't been able to do ourselves. And so just bringing on an expert team has been absolutely a game changer. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you, man.